everybody.
Hi.
So my husband said to me as I was leaving Florida yesterday, why did you decide to go up in February? And I said, because I can be a little uncomfortable for a weekend, but if I come in June or July, everybody will be out on the lake or in a park, and I want to share with people. So I'm thrilled to be here. Did you have to bring the snow? But I don't know how to act right now because the little kid in me wants to bounce around and be excited to be here to share, but the greater part of me is just so filled with joy and gratitude to get to share with all of you. So we're trying to find that nice place of balance, which is what all of us hopefully strive to do all the time. Diane tells me she gave me an extra half hour today. I didn't plan to speak that long, but as she said, I could fill 24 hours with stories from the other side. The past life stories, the jury's still out with me on past life. I still need evidence. When I hear stories from other mediums, I put myself in the position that I was in years ago when my stepdaughter passed. To me, the greatest tragedy our family had ever been through. To see my husband, a retired Navy destroyer captain, crumple to the deck of our boat when we got the word that our Susan had passed, struck by lightning, a Marine Corps sergeant, 6 months pregnant at the time. When we got that word and my tough as nails husband just crumpled, sobbing, I thought life would never again be the same. And it hasn't, but it has been even better now that I know that Susan is still very much with us. Well, I took my husband to see a medium. I'd heard about these people who could allegedly talk to those who had passed. And I thought if anybody's going to show us that Susan is still with us, then I'm not going to tell them our last name, because maybe they'll look online and find the tribute that I put there to Susan. Or maybe they'll tell me that my grandmother's here and she died when her heart stopped beating. She had gray hair. You know, this kind of thing. I was already the skeptic going in. But I knew I would have one chance to get my husband to know if Susan was still with us. I didn't know. I was hoping beyond hope that she was still around. I didn't find out until years later that my husband went along only because I asked him to. He didn't even know at the time what a medium was. And now he's married to one. And I like to tell the guys that he did that perfect thing. I said, honey, I want to take you to a medium. He gave the perfect answer, yes, dear. Well, happily that medium brought through evidence, and my life has never been the same. What do I mean by evidence? It's facts about the loved one who has passed that we can't deny. There's no way they could know. And in that fateful reading, at first, I just recently listened to the recording again. This was back in 2007. Susan was killed in 2006. She started telling me about my relationship with my husband. Oh, it's wonderful, and your career was wonderful, and all these wonderful things. Everything's wonderful in your life, and that's called psychic work. When you tell somebody about their life, I wanted to hear from a loved one on the other side. And inside I'm thinking, no, everything's not wonderful. There's this big gaping hole in our hearts. I want to hear from Susan, but I didn't say a word. Until finally she said, well, I really don't know why you're here, because everything's so wonderful. And I said, well, I was hoping to hear from a certain spirit. And she said, no, nobody's here. She paused a second and she said, wait, somebody's here. It's a young woman who seems to have passed rather suddenly, in her 20s. And Susan was 27. And she said, and I suddenly had a tingly electrical feeling running up my arm, and the headache of Zeus and Athena. Anybody remember who Zeus was? The guy with the lightning bolt, right? Now I'm starting to cry, because this is not your grandmother with gray hair at all. This is spot on. And she says, and she's wearing a brown uniform, the Marine. And I said, please don't let her go anywhere until I get her father in here, because the woman had never done a reading for 2 people at once. She made Ty sit out in another room. She said, what? She's not going anywhere. Get him in here. So I go to Ty. I said, Susan's here. I know it's her. Come in. And he's looking befuddled, and he sat down with us, and I heard it on the tape even. At that moment, when he sat down, this big clay pot of fern had been sitting on a coffee table, and it went, fell on the floor, and broke, shattered. To this day, we look back at that. We were so rattled by the fact that this woman's bringing through a young girl that sounded like Susan that we kind of all looked at this plant that on its own, for no reason, fell on the floor. And we kind of brushed that to the side, literally. And she said, well, this young girl's now standing in front of you, sir, and she's dancing around in circles saying, Daddy, Daddy. And then she just now crawled in your lap, and she put her arms around your neck and her head on your shoulder like this. Well, that sounds like something a little girl would do, but it's something that our tough as nail Marine daughter did even at 27 last time she saw her dad. She would crawl in his lap and do this. But the clincher for me was when she said, oh, and she's bringing with her a little baby who she wants to introduce to you. But he's standing back shyly sucking his thumb. And that was her son, who was to have been named Liam Tyler after my husband. So I remember very clearly, even though that was, 11 years ago, walking around in a daze, or 3 days, because I had no choice at that moment but to change my whole worldview. You mean there really is a greater reality? You mean Susan is still here? There was no other way to explain that. And so I needed to write a book about that, because I'd already written several books. Some magazine advertising today said I had 23 books. I had 12, which maybe we'll get to 23 someday, I don't know. But I had written a couple books before I started down this more spiritual journey. And I wanted now the world to know that mediumship is real. And for me, what did it was the evidence. So I tell everybody, touch anything that I tell you, anything that anybody tells you in the heart. How does it feel in the heart? Because there are some things like past life regressions that we'll never be able to prove until we get to the other side. But we know it in our heart when it's real. But today, I'm going to be sharing with you all kinds of evidence, the magical stories that change lives. Can I get these lights here are really, it's too much for, if you want me to talk for hours. So, this group is here to study near-death experiences, NDEs, and it's funny. Thank you. Okay.
They don't give us a lot of in-between.
That's fine. So they call that an NDE, a near-death experience, and I also, in one of the same press releases, it says, NDE, or Suzanne Giesemann coming to Chicago, and I went, no, I haven't died. I haven't had a near-death experience, but I have had an STE, which I'll probably tell you about, and that's called a spiritually transformative experience, which takes you to the same place, you just don't have to die first. And then there are other ways that you can have adventures in consciousness. So you can have the NDE, or you can, that's great, you don't have to stay home. NDE, or you can have an STE, or you can have an OBE, some of you may be familiar with that, an out-of-body experience. All again leading to adventures in expanded awareness, adventures in consciousness. Today I'm going to give all of you the opportunity to have many NOE experiences with me. And that's what I call no other explanation than that there is a greater reality. My NOE stories. Why do I share the stories? Because it's been scientifically proven that by hearing what is possible for other people, it opens our minds to experiences of the same type. And so, I want to tell you a little bit about my background, because I see it all part of this plan of my life that made it perfect for those who want to believe there's a greater reality, but just can't go there, or you're kind of on the edge. I see that my life's path has brought into this field many people who are right there and need that little push. So my background, raised with 2 parents, I don't know if they were atheists or agnostics, because we just didn't talk about religion. I mean, it was that much of a not talk about type of thing. I know they tried to take us to a Unitarian church when I was 5, it didn't last long. So I was left on my own to figure things out. Actually, I see that as a bit of a blessing now, because I've come to have my understanding of spirit, God, love, light, call it what you will, through the heart, and not through what somebody told me. And my understanding of that light is through the experience of it, through my STE, my spiritually transformative experience of going to that light. I'll just share it with you now. I was on a healer's table and went into a very nice expanded state of awareness. The next thing you knew, I was just in that light. Yet around me were all kinds of beings. I couldn't see them, but I knew they were there. They blended with the light. And I remember sobbing from the bliss, and they were saying, "Now do you remember? Now do you remember? Remember where we came from." And I did remember, and it's something you don't forget once you've felt it. But that's my background as far as belief systems. Then went off to college, graduated from college, went to Officer Candidate School for the Navy, got commissioned a Navy officer, and spent a full 20 years in the Navy, not thinking about spiritual things at all, not thinking about a greater reality, very focused on my Navy career. I joined before most women were allowed on ships, so I spent all but 10 days of 20 years ashore. I got to be my husband, he spent 26 years in the Navy, 14 years of which were at sea. So it's funny because when I retired from the Navy, the very next day, we had already sold our house and cars. The day after I retired, we set sail in our sailboat and sailed off into the ocean. I had to retire from the Navy to go to sea. So I had a very wonderful career in the Navy. I absolutely loved it, but people asked me over and over, would you go back? And I couldn't at this point because this is my calling to do this work. Meanwhile, I did get to serve as a commanding officer of a shore unit. It's every Navy officer's goal to be a commanding officer, so that was wonderful. I was asked by the head of the whole Navy, the Chief of Naval Operations, to be his protocol officer, and very exciting tour for me. I loved that. And then after my command tour, needed to come back to Washington, D.C., and became a protocol officer for the Joint Staff and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon. I really didn't like protocol. I just kept getting put in that job because I was really good at organizing things and planning things. But to me it was like, well, let me put it this way. My specialty in the Navy was called General Unrestricted Line, which isn't much of a specialty. General Unrestricted Line. The Navy puts acronyms on everything. You know what that acronym is? GURL. I was a girl in the Navy. How do you like that? For 20 years. So they put me in protocols like being pigeonholed into a girl's job. So there I am in one of my final tours. I'm a commander now in the Navy. And one day, the head honcho of the whole United States military, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said, "How would you like to be my aide de camp?" For me, a girl for 20 years, a Navy officer, he's 6'5", Army Special Forces officer, even generals quaked in his presence. You know, he picked a girl to be his aide. And it was awesome. It was awesome. I guess all that organizing and planning paid off, huh? So you have to fly on Air Force One with the president. I was in the last aircraft in U.S. airspace on 9/11. We could talk a lot about the stories in the military, but it is that background that lends credibility to my work now, because the chairman chose me for my integrity and the planning, the organizing, everything that works against being a medium. All that logical left brain stuff I have had to get out of the way. So how did I find out that I'm a medium? Well, after I had that reading, I did write a book. And in fact, there's one copy of it on the table up there. I haven't seen it in years. It's called The Priest and the Medium. And at the time I came here to speak to this group, how many of you were here then? November? About 5 people. November 2010, my gosh, it's like a lifetime ago. I came and I talked about that book that I wrote, and I had just recently discovered that I can communicate with those who passed as well. So only about 1 year into my mediumship. So at that time, I was probably in front of this group saying, yeah, I'm a medium. And now I say, and I am a medium, because there's just no doubt. And how that came about is I wrote this book, The Priest and the Medium, about another wonderful medium named Anne Gaiman who married a former Jesuit priest. But it's pretty funny because now people read that book, they saw I wrote it, they go up to my husband, the Navy destroyer captain, they say, "You were a priest?" Oh, far from it, far from it. So I wrote Anne's story, and a friend of hers, who was a former Catholic nun, said, "Will you write my story?" Because she's a medium now. What a great story to go from nun to a medium. That book's out there too. I haven't seen that one in a long time, years. In the process of writing Janet Nohavic's story, I needed to attend her class in mediumship to see what she teaches, how she teaches, to write about her. I was ghost writing the book for her. I was writing it like an autobiography. How do you like that? A medium ghost writing. So I sat in the back of the classroom. I said, "Janet, just let me sit back here and pretend like I'm one of your students. Nobody needs to know that I'm actually observing you." She said, "No, you're going to have your own experience here today." I said, "How do you know?" And she looks at me like, and I said, "Oh, you're a psychic, I forgot." So I sat in the back and she went through a process for tuning into spirits. You tell them what you want to hear and they will give it to you every time. She called it name, rank, and serial number. Oh, I could identify with that. You mean you can actually ask these people who have died to tell you how old were they when they passed, what did they die of, what kind of work they did, that kind of thing, and they'll tell it to you? Wow, that would make it almost like predictable and easy. So she said, "So that's called the system. We need a volunteer to come up here." "Who wants to come up and bring through a spirit?" she says. "Suzanne, come up here and bring through the spirit." I could have run out the door happily, or wished the hole would open up in the floor, but the Navy officer says, aye, put me on the spot, okay. So I come up there, I've never had any idea I could do this. I stand there, she says, "Well, there's a spirit standing here, what do you sense?" I sensed nothing, but her system's there. So she says, "How old was he?" "Well, I see the number 70 in my mind's eye." She says, "All right, what did he die from?" "Well, I hear the word cancer. It's a male." Yeah, she said, "Male or female?" I say male, but I can't feel anything. And then what else is it? "What kind of work did he do?" she said. "Well, I hear engineer." So she opens it up to the class. "Who here has a male who passed at 70, was an engineer, passed with cancer?" And a woman raised her hand. "My dad was an engineer, died at 70 from cancer." And I'm in my mind doing the math, the statistics, right? What are the chances of that? There are only 20 people in the class. What are the chances? The greatest gift Janet could give me in that moment was she stood over here and she said, "Yeah, and your dad's showing me he had a baseball cap collection and his birthday was March 31st. And the girl said, "Yeah." Now, if Janet had just said, "Very good, Suzanne, sit down," I, to this day, would have thought I made it up and never would have taken it any farther than that. But when she said that, I'm thinking, you mean there really is someone here? So she said, "Get some more, Suzanne. All I want to do is sit down." Well, I tune in. Well, I see a full head of hair. You notice I've heard things now and I've seen things. I see a full head of white hair, and I can't remember what else I got. And she said, and the girl said, "Yeah, full head of white hair." Okay. Meanwhile, she's sitting next to somebody that's bald, so it's not like I was just picking up on cues. So Janet's over here. She gave a couple more pieces of evidence. She says, "Come on, push yourself, Suzanne. One more thing, one more thing." All right. So I closed my eyes. Well, I just saw a pair of patent leather shoes and I heard the word twinkle toes. And that woman in the classroom said, "My father was a ballroom dancer and my mother always called him Twinkle Toes." And that did it for me. Because I was never good at math, couldn't do the statistics on that. I was like, "Twinkle Toes?" Oh, so now I'm no longer just the journalist in the back of the room. I said, "Can I sit in the class? Can I do all the exercises?" And every time I paired up with somebody that I didn't know, I'm getting evidence. Evidence. Not just, "Oh, somebody's here that loves you so much." But this is an uncle and he used to work on a farm and this kind of thing. So she had a series of 3 classes. I went to all 3 classes, same experience every time. And I said, "How far can we take this? I want to go study where Janet studied." which is the Arthur Findlay College of Psychic Sciences in England, right outside London. Put your money where your mouth is, right? I flew to England. I get in the cab outside of Stansted Airport. I said, I need to go to Arthur Findlay College. And the taxi driver says, where? And I know it's real close by. I said, the College for Mediums? He says, oh, you mean Spooks College. That's how they knew. And Jenna had warned me. She said, if you go there, watch out, you'll come home a changed person. And she was absolutely right. The energy that's built up there over decades of training some of the world's best evidence-based mediums, the ones who insist on evidence from the spirits, just allows for really excellent experiences there. And I had those. And I wrote about them in my book, Messages of Hope, and they've just continued since then. I came home and I gave readings to friends, and next thing you know, they're saying, well, my friend wants a reading, my friend wants a reading, and the more you do something, the better you get. And the more spirits show you things, you build up your own library of symbols. So now it's almost like shorthand. I'll see certain things that I see every time in a reading. I know what that means, I know what that means, I hear this, and it just flows. Until today, now, how many years later? Well, that was 2009. I have, I don't even look anymore, over 600 people on my waiting list. And it's years of wait, because I only do 2 readings a day when I'm home. And I'm not doing this. My real calling is to share with people this reality, to let you know that death is not the end. That your loved ones who have passed are as near as your thoughts. What I mean by that is when they get to the other side, you still have that heart connection. And the mere thought of them sends out a wave of information carrying energy to their energy field. Oh, they're thinking about me, and they're with you. Just like that. And I can tell you that all day, but I need to tell you stories. I need to share with you the evidence so you know how I can stand up here and say to you, I guarantee you there is an afterlife. And I guarantee you your loved ones who have passed know what's going on in your life now. It's on my list of things. My name, rank, and serial number list is tell me something going on in your loved one's life now so they know you're still around them. So I called this talk today, Still Right Here. It's based on my latest book, Still Right Here, because this book is a story of 4 couples, each with a child on the other side. Their kids brought us together because we're one of the couples. And it's filled with evidence that they are still actively part of our lives. Each one of these couples devastated when you get that call that no parent ever wants to get. Yet all of us now living lives so filled with joy and so much deeper love, because when you suffered deep loss, you actually gain and grow more from it. Your friendships are so much deeper. You love so much more. You value each day so much more. But for me, for all of us in that book, it comes from knowing your loved ones are not dead and gone. The body may be dead, but the spirit lives eternally and is as close as your breath. I want to give you a quick example how it works, this greater reality. Everything has its own frequency. You do. That's how psychic does their reading. They tune into your energy field. I call it your personal ringtone. So, how is your ringtone right now? Is it sweet and harmonious? Or is it a little raucous? You take with you to the other side what you earn here. I taught this in a class once. A girl came in after the break. She came up to me. She says, Suzanne, I'm a little worried. My ringtone is bad to the bone. But we're all a frequency, and all of your thoughts and all of your actions and how loving you are or how loving you're not are in your energy field. When you walk into a party, can't you immediately resonate with certain people? You just click. That's your fields in a harmonious state, resonant. And then there are other people you talk and it's like, well, oh, nice to meet you. And you go away very quickly because your energy fields are dissonant. It's all right there. And that's why it's kind of hard to be my husband, because I know everything now. I read his field very clearly. So we're all these energy fields with signals, frequencies. When the body dies, that field remains. It's a signal. So the example I like to give to people about how your loved ones don't have to come from far away when you think about them, if they pass, is to imagine a big, well, there's one right there, flat screen TV, okay? If we were to turn that on right now, we'd see some people on the screen, right? Are those people in the television? Somebody please answer me. No. Okay, of course not. This is a silly question to ask. It's just picking up a signal. How many TV signals are in this room right now? Hundreds, right? Hundreds, easily. And thank goodness we have this thing here. You might call it a brain. I call it a frequency analyzer that filters out higher frequencies, or we would be in chaos. We'd be seeing all these TV signals. We'd be hearing everybody's cell phone calls, but the brain filters that out. But it also filters out the signals of our loved ones who have passed. So here we have a TV set. It is an instrument to display a signal that is present in the room, right? Yes, thank you. So what happens if somebody jumps up, grabs that TV, and brings it down and smashes it to the floor while the program's showing? Now the program can't show anymore, right? Where did the signal go? It's still here, of course it is. That's just the instrument. So what happens if I leave this building and I don't look left before I cross the street, and a bus comes along and hits this instrument? Where did my signal go?
Still here.
Yes, ma'am. It's still here. Still existing, but at a different level of frequency vibration that we can no longer see, because this frequency analyzer doesn't allow that. But through grace, through efforts, I'm able to tune into those signals, and that's what mediums do. Mediums are no different than you or I. We all have the same equipment. We have a soul. Mediums, for some reason, have a finer tuned antenna and can tune into those with intention. I'm teaching mediumship now, and I just love when we get a lot of people in my classes who simply want to connect with their own loved ones. They have no intention of being mediums. And it's so wonderful to see them have experiences like I did that first day in the class with Janet, to tune into somebody else's loved one. How did I do that? It's there all along. I'm getting way ahead of myself, but I wanted to use that extra half hour that is given her to share that with you. But yeah, I tried to make a list of the way things have changed since I spoke here last in 2010. Oh my goodness. So being very left brain, hopefully very balanced now. Since I was here last, I've been tested numerous times at the Laboratory of Human Consciousness at the University of Arizona with Dr. Gary Schwartz. And so it's wonderful to be able to say, this is real. Look at what came through under tested circumstances. And there's another organization, they made me sign on a dotted line that I wouldn't talk about being tested there. So there's another place that tests mediums that I was tested at. It was really cool. They put the skull cap on, you know, the EEG, 64-lead brainwave measuring device on my skull. And this is a very important point for anybody who wants to learn to tune into the greater reality. The key is creating coherent brainwaves and coherent heart waves, like a laser beam, in sync with each other. So I sat down and these scientists were putting this cap on my head, 64 leads, hooking them all up, and I sat there and I thought to myself, let's get in the zone right now. And I just took a few deep breaths. I know what expanded awareness feels like. I'm just calming down, and the gentleman, the PhD scientist, looks at the computer screen, he looks at me and he says, are you an experienced meditator? And I said, well, I guess it's all relative, because I haven't been doing this for decades, but for years, and that's why I can do this work now. And I said, well, I guess. And he said, because we haven't even started yet, and you're kicking out some really coherent alpha waves. And I was like, yes. Because that is the key, and this is, I know why, when Janet and Havoc pulled me to the front of that room in 2009, that I was able to tune into that man's spirit. Because the week Susan passed, I began meditating daily. Something in me, the soul, said, if you want to connect with her yourself, you need to quiet your mind. You need to practice presence. So I'm talking about meditation here. practicing presence, being aware of what's going on here and now is another form of meditation. But I sat daily in the silence. The first 3 weeks, I fell asleep every day. Anybody been there? You know, yeah. Oh, the body says, oh my God, she's actually sitting still for once. Nap time, you know. And I thought, I'm not getting anywhere. This is a waste. All I wanted to do was connect with Susan. That was my whole intention. Nothing's happening. But I kept at it. That was my commitment to Susan. Kept at it. Still didn't sense Susan, but I did sense I was becoming more peaceful. I did sense my responses to other people's unrest was much kinder. I noticed that I started knowing things about other people as my intuition came back online. We never lose it. We tune it out. We don't need it when we have Siri, right? So by the time Janet called me to the front of her room, I had been meditating daily for 2 years. I don't think I'd seen Susan yet at that point. But when she said, there's a spirit standing here, I get twinkle toes. And from there, it's just been this uphill, beautiful opening. It's a dedication to the spirit world. My meditation is sacrosanct. And so, if you want to connect with your loved ones, I'll teach you a few techniques today. I'm not just going to tell stories. I'm starting to tell you how it works, but I'll show you how to connect yourself. Because I know there's not a one of us here wouldn't love to talk to certain loved ones on the other side, right? First key is talk to them, honor them. They're trying to get through to you all the time, but we often miss their signs when we don't realize what they're doing. So talk to them, they absolutely hear you. So let's see. I remember I kept track of how many readings I'd done. I remember after every reading, I'd write it down and I would give myself a score. You know, was that a 5-bar reading or a 3-bar reading or what? You know, like a cell phone signal. I'm like my own worst enemy. You know? Until one day I'm writing down like 702 readings, and my guide said to me, "And when will enough be enough that you truly trust that we're here?" I went, oh. And the next day I went to write it and I stopped and I didn't keep track, and I finally got it. You're a medium already. You don't have to keep track of this. So now I just know it brought through thousands of souls, and it doesn't matter. It's not about numbers. It's about lives healed, hearts opened, spirits served on the other side. I teach a mediumship class and I call it serving spirit, because a medium is a voice for those who no longer have a physical voice. And it's so healing. Quick story. Why I call it sacred work, mediumship. It saves lives. In fact, yesterday, okay, I'll share that. I'm sitting on the plane, we've just landed, we couldn't get to our gate yet, so I pull up my email. And there's an email, and I get these frequently, but not like this one really touched me. It was a woman thanking me for the reading I had recently done, brought through her mother. I used to give so much value to readings for couples who have children on the other side, or somebody who has a spouse on the other side. Now I know not to devalue any connection. It's not like, oh, this is just a mother. This mother came through to validate a decision my client had made at the end of her life. And the woman burst into tears. I had no idea what that meant to her. She specifically said what it was she was validating, but I don't have permission to share it, so I won't. But you can understand the situation. And the email said to me, I had been in a deep depression for years, have not been sleeping or eating or socializing. I had already formed my end-of-life plan when I reached out to you. And I knew you had a 3-year wait, but for some reason you said, I'm taking you right away. It's because I check in every time I get a request. Wait or not, and it was very clear, do this reading now. And she said, I am now, thanks to that visit from my mother, living a normal life. So, I want to show you the really cool story, full of evidence, real quickly. We get to break for refreshments. But I want to make sure you come back after eating the cupcakes. So let me share with you. Walked into a room with this many people in it, in the community where I live in Florida. It was a group full of ladies, neighbors, about 80 of them. And it was a mixed crowd. This is a friendly crowd. You're all open-minded, you know about the other greater reality, or you're here to learn about it. But this crowd, when I say mixed crowd, there were a few people that were like, a medium. They talk to spirit, how do they know that's not the devil? That kind of thing. I could feel it. So, but I've never tried to change anybody's mind. I share the evidence. And then you don't have to worry what anybody thinks. They can test it in their own heart. So I'm sitting there, we're eating lunch first, and this woman comes up to me. She said, Suzanne, you remember you gave me a reading? And I was like, oh, I think I remember your reading. She looked at the president of the ladies group and she said, may I introduce Suzanne? She said, sure. So I'm still sitting here and this woman steps up. She's a little feisty fire plug. She said, you all know me? And everybody kind of laughs like, how could we not know you? And she said, and you know that I lost my husband about a year ago. And everybody gets serious. And she said, so my doctor said to me, I don't know what to do with you anymore, because I was really depressed. She said, the only thing I can think to recommend at this point is that you go see this medium who lives here, named Suzanne Giesemann. And I'm listening to the story like everybody else, thinking, wow, a doctor sent her to a medium? Pretty cool. So I don't know where this is going, this story, because I just luckily forget most readings right after they happen. You can't carry all that around. So she says, so I go and I didn't tell her anything, and I sit down across from her, and she looks at me and she says, you have a husband on the other side. And he passed very suddenly from an aneurysm in his brain, and you all know that's how my husband passed. So at this point I'm paying attention. I am too, listening to this story thinking, oh good, it was a good reading. And she says, and she went on to tell me what his personality was like. She went on to say what kind of work he did. Name, rank, and serial number, right? And she says, and then she says, your husband's very happy that you're going to England soon. He's proud of you. And I looked at her and I said, how do you know I'm going to England? It's the first time I'm traveling since he died. And she said, because he's standing right here and he's telling me that. That is evidence. And she says, but what nobody knows is that on the way to that reading with Suzanne, I stopped at the drugstore and bought enough pills and put them in my purse to do myself in if I didn't hear from my husband that day. And now I'm really looking, and now everybody's kind of on the front of their seats. And she says, so after my husband says he's happy that I'm going to England, Suzanne says, well, your husband just said, don't you dare take those pills in your purse. And I got to tell you, all the crossed arms in that audience came down. And people were open. And it's beautiful that they wanted to pay attention, but the beautiful thing was another save. Another save. And it's not about just saving lives here, although my husband tells people, he sits at the book table in a lot of my talks, and people come and say, that reading saved my life. I'm glad I don't know that people are in that bad a shape. I am only here to be the voice. So come back after refreshment, please, because I'm going to fire hose you. Okay? So that other half hour, that was just the warm-up. Now we're going to really get into the evidence and the stories. Okay, so I have some notes because there's some evidence I don't want to forget to share with you. Some stories I definitely don't want to forget, so I refer to these from time to time. One thing I have learned, and it's been one of the hardest lessons for me, is that guides are real. And the Navy officer in me didn't want to believe that before. Oh, spirit guides. I didn't even want to talk about spirit guides. That sounds woo-woo, right? You know that word, woo-woo? But now I'm leading workshops and meeting your guides. I'm coming to Minneapolis in May. There are cards out on the book table about that. But you all have guides. We would stumble a lot more through life if we didn't. And if there's one thing they've taught me, it's that all of our brilliant thoughts are not necessarily our own. Many of our thoughts are put there by higher consciousness. And they keep us out of trouble. But the thing is, once we come to know they're really there and we sit in the silence and directly connect with them, it's like having your own genie in a bottle. People come to psychics because they want answers to questions their soul already knows the answer to. And the psychic will validate that for you, but you can get your own answers from your own guides. I rely on my guides very much, And in fact, they're here with me, and you might have seen me get caught once. I gave myself away when I went, oh yeah. They pace me, they give me minute by minute guidance. They came to me very clearly about right around August 2010. I felt this presence just step in, very, very powerful, and I said, who are you? And they said, we are a collective consciousness of your guides, and you will write and write and write as us. You will call us Sanaya. And since that day, I've gotten messages from them every day, thousands of them. They're all online. I post them every day, and thousands of people read them because they're universal messages to all of us. How to live our lives more easily here with more peace. Who could use a little bit of that? But I'm going to give you some really stunning examples of how very real they are. They throw evidence in their messages quite frequently. But when I get certain requests to do things or when people need help, I know I don't have the answers. Einstein knew that too. He said, no problem is ever solved at the level at which it originated. So where are all of our problems? Right here, right? So when we have a challenge, we take it to the next level. It's simply an intention shift. And I do that. And that's just checking in with the team, with a capital T. What do I do here? What's the best course of action? How do I solve this challenge? And the answers that come, once you've trained your mind to be quiet and to tell that subtle difference between my thoughts, my imagination, and higher guidance, they're so wonderful, and your life just flows. So we'll be talking more about how to access that guidance. But I got an email from a woman. I get many more requests than I can handle. And she said, I lost my son, and I wish we had other words than lost, because I know they're not lost. The physical body is not here anymore. So I lost my son, and she said, we'll make this short. She said, if I don't get a reading with you, I'm going to kill myself. She came right out and said it, and we talked about this aspect of the book earlier. But I kind of sat back and said, how do we handle this one? You know, at my level, it's like, what do we do? I want to just say, no, you need to see a psychiatrist first, very nicely. I meant that. I didn't say that. But what do I do in that case is I check in with Sanaya. By the way, when they came to me, I immediately came out of meditation and Googled Sanaya. And it's a Sanskrit name that means eminent, distinguished, and of the gods. What a great name for a bunch of guys. It also means one worth knowing, great name. But it wasn't for years later I found out it's also an Arabic girl's name meaning flash of lightning. Which is how my daughter was killed. So Sanaya is near and dear to my heart. So I said to them, and it just takes for me just a shift. What do I do with this woman? And they said, do it immediately. Okay. I don't like that kind of pressure, because the pressure is that we can never guarantee the spirit's going to show up. Well, more likely than not, they're going to show up. 99.9% of my readings, they show up. Why wouldn't they want to communicate? Can I tune into them is the question. There's three aspects in a reading. The sitter, that's the client, the medium, and the spirit. If one of those three parts of that triangle is having a bad day, that connection may not be a 5-bar signal. But Sanaya says, do it. I know they've got my back. So I think this reading was by video, like Skype. I use a program called Zoom. So here's this woman, and we're looking at each other on my computer screen, and I tuned in, and I said, here's your son. He took his own life. Yes, he did. And now I tune in, and I start to see my symbols. When I see that, your son was bipolar. Yes, he was. He's showing me a separation between you and his father. You were divorced. Yes, we were. And he shows me that he really butts heads with his current stepfather, was very sullen with him. You see how the evidence is flowing. And so right away, she knows that this sounds just like my son. You got my son there. I said, he's telling me he has one brother, wants to send his love to him. He's showing me he suffered from bad acne. Yes, he did. I love this kind of evidence. The very last thing I would ever do is Google someone or look at anything on the internet before reading, because that would take away the sacredness of this. But I like to say, I love the evidence that you can't find on Google. Somebody had bad acne, or the big one that I'll say from this guy to the end of this little list of evidence. But that's one of them. You know, I often, after a reading, will go online to see what they look like, and I'll find obituaries, and there's like the major thing that they love to do, and I'll say, why didn't you tell me that? And it's so obvious, because then they might always think you looked them up beforehand. So they give me the real obscure stuff, which I love. That's what it's all about, that connection. He showed me he had moved from job to job, then he took me into his backyard and said, he showed me you have bird feeders all over your backyard. It's really cool for me, this journey, to learn that you can actually have the Spirit walk you through a yard and see it. It's like you're there, kind of like remote viewing. By the way, I didn't mention, until that moment when Janet Nohava called me to the front of her class, I had no idea I had this ability. Until last month, I told everybody I'm not a born medium. But Sanaya called me on the carpet on that one. They said, you gotta stop saying that. You are a born medium, you just didn't know it. So I know that all of us can learn to tune in to some level, but it's my calling to do this work. I think it was kept hidden from me so I would have that military background to hopefully bring more credibility to the work. But it was definitely hidden from me. So I had no idea I was psychic, had no idea the greater reality even existed. So to have spirits walk me through the backyard and show me the bird feeders and show me the chimes hanging, that kind of thing, it's awesome. And I hope I never stop being awed. I sit in readings and I go like this, I'll get a good piece of evidence. I get so excited. And sometimes it's hard because you're sitting with somebody who, not everybody is crying. I always have the Kleenex nearby, but some people are really hurting. And I want to go, oh boy, but sometimes I'll say, don't you see what I just got caught. I got to share a story with you. Did you see that happen? Mm-hmm. They just said, tell the goldfish story. Okay, that one comes next then. All right. So meanwhile, I have this woman who, was so devastated by her son's death that she wanted to die. He told me, my mom is on meds, but she's considering, she's not on meds, she's considering them, but tell her she doesn't need them now. Now she knows I'm here. I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. And she says, yeah, I have been thinking about the antidepressant, but I really don't want to go on them. He showed me a bear. I said, this is a real bear. I can see the fur and everything. There's some bear he was dealing with a bear. She says, it's in the freezer. What? The bear's in the freezer? He was a taxidermist. Oh. And I said, well, there's also a bear on a flag. This is a Montana flag. I don't know anything about that. I love when my sitters say, I don't know what you're talking about. And they come back to me later, like she did a couple weeks ago, and said, oh my God, we just got into his safe and there's a Montana flag in it with a bear on it. So this shows, for the skeptics, and I understand the skeptic's mind, oh, you're just reading their mind. No, it's the things when they can't answer you or they think you're wrong and they come back later and say you were right, because it's coming straight from the loved one on the other side. He mentioned a necklace that his mom wore. Now, I've done enough readings now for parents that I will tell you, 99% of mothers with a child on the other side wear a necklace that has to do with their child. So you want to be a good medium, you sit with somebody who has a child, you say, and you wear a necklace. See, that's how fake mediums work. So when a spirit tells me, my mom wears a necklace, now I said, we better describe it. And I don't remember how I described it, but I said, well, your son says you wear a necklace. Well, the reason it came up in that reading is she had asked him to mention it in the reading. So I love that. By the way, if anybody comes to me for a reading and says, I'm looking for that one thing that'll show it's them, I won't do the reading. Because then they're putting limits on what the medium can get. There's no guarantee. And they will be disappointed, and it just doesn't work like that. What we aim to do is get enough evidence, I call it the preponderance of the evidence, that you leave no doubt they were here. Whether or not they give your password, your keyword, that's our human demands. This is all about showing they're right here. But the biggest thing for me was right near the end of the reading. He just flashed this image of his face before me, and it had a toothpick And I said, your son is showing me a toothpick hanging out of his mouth. In fact, I know he used to have one in his mouth almost all the time. And that knowing comes from the heart. And she said, oh my God, he did. All the time. It was either in his hat or in his mouth. And to this day, this poor woman, all of her friends, they get to hear the reading on the tape recording. Listen to this reading. Listen. She plays it for her friends, but she said, she wrote to me, she says, Suzanne, when they get to that part with the toothpick, they go, every one of them says, wow, that's him. And that's what we like, the wows, the wows. And what was really cool was this is a woman that said, I'm just going to kill myself. Well, people at work started coming up to her and said, what meds are you on now? And she says, my son is my meds. Because she knows he's with her. What a change, what a change. That's the whole point there, to let people know they're still with us. The story that Sanaya said to share with you, oh my God, I love this story. So, give it a read for another mother with a son on the other side. He's coming through very clearly. I don't remember any of the evidence except this one bit. This is how spirits will use information that is immediately in the medium's conscious mind because it's easy. That frequency's still floating around my field. The night before the reading, we had a dinner party at our house. And we were discussing the movie A Fish Called Wanda. Anybody ever seen that one? And there's this horrible scene where the one guy takes the goldfish named Wanda and threatens to eat it. He pops it in his mouth live, right out of the equipment. And the fish tail is flopping around his mouth. We were actually talking about that at the dinner party. And my one guest said, oh, I've eaten live guidefish, live goldfish. This is a Navy admiral retired, okay? We're talking about eating fish. So this is our dinner conversation. The next day I'm doing the reading. Near the end of the reading, the son on the other side showed me that image, that exact image, because it was easy. It's right there in my mind, fresh in my mind. And I said to the woman, your son is showing me he ate goldfish. And she said, oh yes, I had to keep him supplied. I said, are you kidding me? Do you know what an amazing piece of evidence that is? Your son ate goldfish, you had to keep him supplied. I said, may I share this on Facebook, please? This is how I let people know this is real. She said, yes, because I always ask to share. So I get on Facebook after the reading. I said, you guys won't believe this. I have a lot of people that read my Facebook page. I just gave this reading to a woman and blah, blah, blah. Shared the goldfish. Her son ate goldfish. Like, they got more comments than most of my posts. Like 23 people are saying, ew, oh, that's so awful. Like the 23rd comment, this one woman says, could she have meant the crackers? So I go and I email my client and I said, did you mean goldfish crackers? And she writes back, well, of course. But see, the point of sharing this story is because we are dealing with intelligence on the other side. And here's a spirit who's already hanging around me because I'm going to be talking to his mom the next day, listening in on my dinner conversation. Do you know, you don't know how hard it would be for a spirit to create in my mind's eye the image of a package of goldfish crackers. He loved goldfish crackers so much, it's like, ooh, we'll use that. We got the same place, right? So, a good one. I love that story. What it feels like in a reading, I've learned the hard way. If I don't feel their presence now, I don't go on. And I say the hard way because sometimes I want my client to be pleased and leave happy. That's a human nature thing. And if somebody in a reading, I'm going along well, and then they'll say, well, do you sense, I'll say, my brother. And I'll tune in, and I think I do, and I get a couple pieces of evidence. I had one guy say yes, 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 when it was really no, no, no. And he said, you didn't have my brother, I think you were fishing, which is like the worst thing I could ever be accused of. And I thought, what happened there? And I realized I broke one of my main rules. If you don't feel them, don't proceed. Because for me, that first time in Janet's class, I felt nothing. But when I went to England, I went with the intention, I want to feel you. I want to know. I'm not just pulling data out of the air. I need to know these are real people still. And I got that experience over there. Now I get lightheaded when they step into my field. They're an energy field. I am an energy field. Light beings. All of us. You, me, those who pass. We're light. And so we merge our lights. And if I don't feel that lightheadedness and then get a total sense of their personality because we become one, I become just like them. In fact, I start talking in first person. Oh, I suddenly want to be driving my truck. Like that. If I don't feel that, then I'm not really connected. And I had forgotten that in that lesson learned the hard way. So for me, what it's like is a merging of two souls. I want to become them. I give them permission to step completely into my field. And people say sometimes, aren't you afraid? No. I wasn't raised to believe in the devil. Do I believe there are lower vibration energies out there? I know there are. This is a world of dualities. But I know also we are all light. And the more you turn up your light and shine it, that's what you attract to you. And if anybody's a low enough vibration, they're not even going to be allowed to talk to me in a reading from the other side. The only scary spirit I ever had was somebody I wouldn't have wanted to meet in an alley when they were here in person. But he wanted to talk to his sister. So he came through and I described him and he was kind of a scary guy, but he didn't come to hurt me. So I feel their personality and I describe it. More stories about that to come. I'm going to tell you about beautiful, beautiful evidential reading for a woman. She came to my bus. We travel around the country in our RV 6 months of the year, sharing the messages on the road. And she came to the bus for a reading. She with her husband in this big red truck. And I brought through her son right away, showed that how he passed very accurately. Lots of evidence from him. It was beautiful. Her husband, an engineer, was just, I don't even think he could drive home. She had to drive because he was so knocked off balance by the evidence. I know that feeling. And that's the goal. So she had been seeing spirits her whole life and turned it off. About 12 years old because it scared her. But after her son passed, she wanted to turn it back on. She came to one of my classes in mediumship and she's now ready to hang her shingle out, really. She is amazing. She's wonderful. She sees the spirits objectively, like in front of her. I don't. I need to tune in and then I get them. But she came to me on the 1-year anniversary of her son's passing and said, can we have another reading? I know you're booked up good, but for her I said, yeah, let's do that. And I know why mediums want their own readings. We all get different pieces of the puzzle. There's nothing like that hearing from them from somebody else. So this one was done by video, and there was her and her husband who I'd seen 7 months earlier for their first reading. And her son stepped in so clearly. I say stepped in, you know, they're really not coming from anywhere, but I become aware of them as our energies merge more carefully. And because we'd already done the whole name, rank, and serial number thing in the first reading, I already knew all the evidence about him. This whole reading became a, what's going on in your life now, Mom? I know all about it. Because he starts right off showing me a greeting card with a feather on the front of it. And I said, and there's nothing else but this feather lying on its side. And she said, you mean this? And she holds it up. And it's a thank you note she had just been writing to a woman that had been taking care of her cat that used to be his cat. So he's just saying, I know that Mom's been doing that. He had just become a doctor when he passed. And I said, he's showing me you have his medical coat, his doctor's jacket, with his names embroidered on it, hanging on a hanger, in a bedroom, on the closet door, with the stethoscope around the neck, and you talk to his jacket, she said, every day. And she sent me a picture. It was exactly that. Wonderful. Oh, I love this one. He's showing me a bottle of Johnny Walker Black. It's like up at this angle. It's open because you toasted with it. And they said, we're sitting in front of our bar. It's up here in front of us. I couldn't see it because the camera was underneath it, looking at them. And it was open because they toasted him on his birthday. I know all about it, Mom and Dad. Thanks for toasting me. Because they're around you on those special days, especially. Why wouldn't they be? It's when we're thinking about our loved ones the most. I said, well, now he's showing me that red truck. I already know you have a red truck because you came to my bus in the red truck. Austin, why are you showing me the red truck? It's just a conversation. I talk to them in the reading, sometimes aloud, sometimes not. But this time, why are you showing me that red truck? I already know about it. He says the truck needs an oil change. Now I'm thinking this is cheesy, right? Because cars need oil changes. His dad lit up and he said, Austin was the one that always changed the oil in that truck. The oil change light came on yesterday. Good one, good one. Oh, speaking of goldfish, so in that reading, all of a sudden, Austin shows me a plastic bag with water in it and a goldfish. This image, clear as day, but so fleeting, people wouldn't believe how fleeting these images are sometimes. And I said, that looks like a pet store. What's the story? Tell me the whole story. Your son says his brother was in a pet store. What store? PetSmart, and wanted to buy a goldfish. She said, oh my God, yesterday. PetSmart. This is when I love teaching mediumship because everything I learned, then I share it with others. And before I would have been happy with goldfish. I'm not happy with that anymore. Show me the store. What's the situation? Open it up because it's fascinating. Then suddenly I got tingly lips like I do when somebody who passed had a stroke, but he's going, now, my sister. He said his sister's having some kind of neurological challenges now. And they said she had had a seizure the week before, first ever. And his mom said, ask him, is she going to be okay? Ooh, I don't like that. I don't like to do medical, see me stepping back? I don't like to do medical things. That's like reading the future or not. But I forgot, Austin was a doctor. And then all of a sudden he's saying, don't trust that doctor, get a second opinion, blah, blah, blah. It was very interesting. And then what surprised me, in the middle of her reading, my stepdaughter Susan stepped in. I said, Susan is here, and I've seen her quite a few times over the years, but not regularly. Why is Susan popping into your reading with Austin? And Colleen, his mom, said, oh, wonderful. I asked her to be here. Because Austin is helping his mom with her readings as a medium. And she figures Susan helps me with my readings. And we have this shared military background because Colleen was a helicopter pilot in the Army for a while. I asked her to be here, and she shows up in the reading. And I haven't seen her in a long time. Do you see? This is another whole reality, a very real world where they interact with each other and they know who's talking to who and they show up. The very next week I did a reading for another. No, it was a one woman. She wanted to hear from her dad. I'm giving her the reading and all of a sudden I said, there's this guy here named Harry. He's the husband of this other woman. She goes, oh, I asked Harry to be here. Same thing. Same exact thing. We ask another spirit to show up in a reading, and I recognize them from another reading, and they're there. That's how real this is. And so the skeptics are right now saying, I'm really not sure how to explain that. And there is no other explanation, N-O-E, than that the spirit world is real. And they want so badly for us to know we're okay. And this reality where we are right now is so filled with love. And it's your job here to bring our world into your world, to know this love, to be that love, to bring that back with you. That's why we're here. That's the biggest message of all. So I recognize certain spirits once I've tuned into them for a while, just like Harry shows up in every, oh my God, it's Harry, what's he doing here? So they show up in readings like that. But now more and more, I've been having what I call the drop-ins. This is when I'm just walking around having my regular life, and a spirit shows up, drops in on me. And I recognize them because I spend an hour with them in a reading. I have a couple pictures, I hope you'll be able to see it. I just put them on my iPad here because some of these are so special. But there was this young woman, a young girl, 15 years old. Her name is Shayna. She passed from something I'd never heard of, but I've had 2 cases of it in my readings. Sudden adolescent death syndrome. Can you imagine? You have a seemingly perfectly healthy adolescent child, and they die. And Shayna just didn't wake up one morning, and that was the diagnosis. And I did a reading for her family, and she came through beautifully. And in that reading, she showed me this little thing that looked like a Christmas ball, but I knew it wasn't a Christmas ball. But it was so fleeting, I didn't mention it. I broke my rule of showing everything. And she showed it to me several times, and I don't know why I didn't say it. But one day, I'm sitting on my lanai, writing that book, still right here, and Shayna drops in on me, just like that, out of the blue. I think our energy fields must fluctuate, and they watch the mediums from the other side. They say, now, she's crying, drop in, you know? So there's Shayna, and she showed me that Christmas ball. So I finally said, I'm sorry I never mentioned it, I'll text your mom right now. So I texted her mother, who I knew peripherally, we're not good friends. She's in another state. I said, Shayna is here with me now. She wants me to tell you that she knows about this thing that looks like a Christmas ball, but it's not a Christmas ball. It has a little intricate design all the way around it. Minutes later, my phone chirps. It's Shayna's mom, showing me this. Can you see it?
Yeah.
It's not a Christmas ball. It's a gift from Shayna's volleyball team that they gave Shayna's parents after she's passed. It's called a happy thought bubble. I mean, the message is inherent in the name, isn't it? I know about that gift, and I want them to be happy when they think about me. So I thought that was really cool. And I texted back, how awesome is that? So I thought that was it, but Shayna wasn't ready to leave. She's still there, and suddenly she's showing me this image of herself. So I get out the phone, back the phone, and I said, Shayna is still here, and she is acting like a cat. She has her hands drawn up like little claws, and now she's drawing whiskers on her face, and she's giggling in fits of laughter. What is this all about? Seconds later, my phone chirps, and the message from her mom was, we are in tears. And it contained this picture. Give me a sec. Meet Shayna the cat. Can you see? See the claws pulled up? The whiskers on the face? I would like a skeptic to explain that one. Mom and Dad weren't with me. I'm not even doing a reading. She shows up to show me a photo that her parents would recognize immediately. Isn't that great? That was about a year ago when I was finishing the book. Maybe less. Since I said to my guides, I am ready to say I am a born medium, the drop-ins are now happening all the time. And I'm tuning into people's loved ones like that all the time. This is just in the last week or two. 3 days ago, it's now like somebody I know gets on the phone and I go, uh-oh, I'll bet their loved ones are here, and they're here. So I was gifted with a phone call from Unity headquarters. Some of you know Unity Church. They offered me a radio show, and I'm now doing it. It's called Messages of Hope Radio Show, weekly. You can tune in live or listen to the archive. Shayna's mom texted me about 3 or 4 days ago to say, loved the radio show today. I guess it was Thursday when she called. And I thought, uh-oh, this is an invitation for Shayna to drop in, and I'm open to that. I was like, are you here? Oh, here she is. So I text back. Yeah, and Shayna's here, and she wants me to talk about a special hairband she had that you or her sister now wears. They know, those on the other side know I want the evidence. So it's not just like, hey, Shayna's here, she loves you. They got to give me evidence. I was just told to share something else with you. And her mom texts back and says, yeah, her sister wears it. How cool is that? Well, I said, I'd give you more, but I have a client coming in 10 minutes. I really have to get ready for this reading. She said, okay. So I start to walk towards my study, and Shayna is yelling in my ear, my mom has a question for me. What? My mom has a question for me. It was like 9 minutes till the client is showing up. I get on the phone, and I call her mom. And she says, I thought you had a client. I said, I do, but your daughter is saying you have a question for her. She says, I do. I said, yes, I'm that confident. It's just, yes. And she said, well, actually, I was wondering, does she really sit with me in meditation? Because I feel her, but I'm just not sure. It's not my imagination. So I said, Shana, do you really feel your mom in meditation? Are you really with her in meditation? She went like this. I said, not only does she sit with you in meditation, she sees you fingering the mala beads. And her mom went, oh my God, and texted me the photo of the mala beads and the book called Beads of Faith, which she had pulled down from the shelf 2 days earlier, hadn't used them in months, and was meditating with them for the last 2 days. Is that awesome? The drop-ins. For a family, trust me, I know, to go from thinking, that's it, I'll never see them again, to know that they're still right here, the name of this talk today. And it's not that this is the point of that book, Still Right Here, that it's not that someday we'll see them in that heaven that the medium connected to for 1 hour. They sit with me when I meditate. They come near when we toast them with our Johnny Walker Black. They're here. We just can't see them because this frequency analyzer isn't tuned to that frequency. They knock plants off tables. They're that powerful sometimes. They send us signs all the time. And that's another thing in my readings. What sign are you sending? Should I get into signs now? Later. We'll get into signs later. But I did want to tell you that even when my own Susan shows up, I ask her for evidence. Not for me, for the rest of the family. I know she's here. Just like I know in any reading, that loved one's right here. But having been the skeptic on the other side of the medium, I know it's the medium's evidence that changes lives. And so when Susan shows up, I mentioned this and Still Right Here, there was this one party when just even a year and a half ago, drop-ins were not usually on demand. I went to a party with 2 of these couples. I knew they had sons on the other side. I hadn't yet met them in readings, but I said, please, I want to sense you. Be present at this dinner party. And they came through beautifully. Just standing right here, your one son's showing me hot air balloons. Oh yeah, I photographed him going over the house this morning. Just right here. Your other son's showing me pictures of corn on the cob. Are we having that for dinner tonight? Well, we were going to. I have a picture of it in my phone, but I decided against it. Okay, and on and on. The evidence. So we're sitting at the dinner table, and all of a sudden here's Susan. She pops in every once in a while. Nobody else knows Susan's here. I'm just kind of eating. And she goes, what about me? She was sassy. Like, you're talking to everybody else's kid, how about me? And so totally silently I said, well, you got to give me something, tell me something going on in your dad's life that I don't know. That's how you get evidence from your own loved ones. And just like that, she said, well, Dad has a toothache. So imagine Ty sitting here at my side, has no idea I'm conversing silently with his daughter, and I whipped my head to the left and I said, you have a toothache? And he goes, well, yeah, it started this morning, but I didn't tell you about it. And I said, Susan's right here and she knows all about it. She wants to join the party. And that's how it goes. That's how I view readings. It's a party. The spirit world, most of my readings are setups from the spirit world, and it usually shows up that way. You know, this is my mother's birthday. How did we end up having this reading today? It's a setup. And that's the attitude I take into my readings. It's called compassionate detachment, or detached compassion. Because if I sit there and get sucked into that grief, then I can't do my job. I think part of my Navy training helped me with that. I remember on 9/11, walking into that gaping hole that was my office building, and thinking I'd like to be anywhere else but here, and just thinking I want to run away and go home, and thinking, no, what are we taught in the Navy? Suck it up. That's the term. Be tough. Sit with somebody who's sobbing, and their loved one is right here. If I start crying with them, I can't do my job. I can still feel the love. That's the connection right there. That's what makes the connection possible. So you just tell the client, just breathe, they're right here. I need you to think about love. If you had any idea the difference you make when you focus on your heart and radiate that out, I've had it literally knock me off a chair when people do that. Turn up the love. We do that. That's what we're here to learn how to do. Is this good stuff? Yes, it is. So, how it works is it's like the internet. It's like one big web of connections. And the two worlds, the spirit world and our world, are interconnected. And so I sit to do a reading. How do I connect with that spirit? Well, it's like you go and you do a search on Google, not for a reading, but when you sit to do a search on the internet, you want information. You sit down, you have that search box, and you enter in everything you know, and you hit a button. What do you expect is going to happen? The answer is going to come back. The information you want is going to come back. So when I sit to do a reading, I know I'm tapping into the great internet in the sky. And I take what information I know. I have a client here named Mary. That's all I know. I don't know who she wants to hear from, but here's Mary. So I imagine a search box. All loved ones of Mary. That's who I want to hear from, especially the ones she wants to hear from, but I know the spirit world's in charge. And it's like hitting enter. That intention fueled with love. That's how you connect with your loved ones. It's your desire and your intention filled with love. And then you become silent, you breathe in. We'll talk, I'm going to give you a little method to do that in a little bit, okay? But it's just like one big web. Oh, I want to tell you a story about going to sit with a group of parents in a group called Helping Parents Heal. If any of you have a child on the other side or know anybody with a child on the other side, go to helpingparentsheal.org. Wonderful organization that encourages this kind of talk, that encourages people to share the signs, that helps people know they are not gone and lost forever. Well, I speak to those groups anytime I can when we travel around the country. And this was a small group? Good. We don't want big groups of, we call them shining light parents. No longer do we have to be stuck with the term bereaved parents. That has a low vibe, doesn't it? So we came up with the term shining light parents. I won't harp on that, but I love it. So I'm sitting with a small group of shining light parents. As I approached the meeting, I walked up to the door of this woman's house, and there was a door knocker, and there was a doorbell. And I went to reach for the door knocker, and I just felt this pushback, and just sensed I'm supposed to ring the doorbell. So I ring the doorbell, hear this bark, 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 bark. And the door opens, and the lady, the leader of the group, answers the door, and she has her pit bull with her. And she said, "Oh, this is Wesley." And I'm like, "Oh, hello, Wesley." I have little dachshunds, you know, so I'm like, big dogs. And he looked a little ferocious, but I could tell it's going to be okay. So we had the meeting in the backyard, and Wesley's roaming around. And I don't normally bring through spirits in group reading, in group settings, but it was a small group. So I said, well, let's see if we can tune into anybody here. And right away I sensed this woman and her husband, the host, son. And as I started to bring through evidence, it was spot on how he had passed. The pit bull jumps up on the bench next to me and is staring at me. And I said, and your son is saying this is his dog, and the dog rescued your son. And she said, he was the rescue dog, and that's exactly, who's calling? Yeah. And that was exactly what he used to say, that he rescued me. Well, the more I got into this reading, that dog just pushed up against me. It was amazing. Everybody's like, look at Wesley. Look at Wesley. He never does that with anybody. I'm going to share with you why that happened, okay? Or another facet of that. So, in that reading, I said, your son is showing me that he sends you dragonflies as a sign. And she said, bugs maybe. And I said, no, this is specifically a dragonfly. I'm always very specific. I won't say yes just to get a yes. This is dragonfly. She said, well, I don't know about the dragonfly. So hold that thought. Later, she and her husband came to my house for a reading, and he was showing me tattoos. I said he could draw tattoos like an artist. And they said he was a tattoo artist. The beautiful, beautiful evidence. But meanwhile, in that reading, it ended. The dog's still sitting next to me, and this firecracker goes off down the street, and the dog sits up and goes, it growls right in my face, looking towards the fireworks. Have you ever had a pit bull growl back close to your face? Okay, no. And they said, oh, don't mind him. He hates loud noises. He especially hates that door knocker. So I know that her son already knew the party was about to start and was standing there saying, don't knock that door knocker. Ring the doorbell. Well, the fun thing about the dragonflies is the next week, his mom went to a lake with her sister. And they were swimming around, and her sister said, oh, look, a dead dragonfly. Great big one floating on the water. And because of what her son had said in the reading, oh, she just felt sorry for it. And so she picked it up and was just going to carry it ashore. And as she carried it ashore, one little wing went, brrr. She went, oh my gosh. And she got out her phone to film it. And the other little wing went, brrr. And as she carried it right to shore, it got up and flew away. And it was just like the most beautiful sign that it may appear that I'm dead and the body is gone, but I'm still here. Just beautiful. So that's Wesley the dog's story with his wonderful owner. Let me tell you about pets. Every time I tell this story, the Kleenexes come out with somebody and they have this aha moment. So I brought through a young man named Andrew. His brother wrote to me and said, I'm at a precipice. I need to hear from somebody who had passed. That sounded kind of ominous to me. And he was also somebody that was really grieving. Well, I brought through his brother and I said, your brother's showing me something in his head. He's saying something that sounds like glioma. He passed from a glioblastoma tumor. All kinds of great evidence from Andrew. I finally got to meet their family, and Ty and I went to dinner at Andrew's home. I sensed him running around that house. He passed at age 18 or 19 I think, but he was present in the house. And I was standing in the dining room talking with my husband and with Andrew's dad. And their cat walked past me and stopped for just a brief moment. And I saw, objectively, that means with my eyes open, see the image of a Superman cape on the cat. And I heard, I'm in here. Okay, maybe I'll still remember. Okay? Please stay with me. I'm thinking, this is insane. So I said to the guys, I'll be right back. I walked into the kitchen where his mom was and I said, did Andrew used to run around the house dressed like Superman? And she said, oh my God, he thought he was Superman. He had Superman pajamas and a cape for years till they finally fell apart. He would wear them to pajama parties. He was Superman on Halloween. He was Superman. And I said, well, here's the message. He merges his energy field with the cat, just like in a reading, so that he can feel you again from time to time. Because it's the only thing they miss is the physical touch. And his mother said, oh my God, we got that cat after he passed, and it climbs into bed and snuggles between us exactly like Andrew did. Anybody else have goosebumps? Because I tell this story and there is invariably somebody who's had somebody pass and their pets have started acting strange afterwards. And it makes so much sense. And occasionally, it doesn't happen often, in readings, I'll say, oh, and you have a dog and your loved one says that they merge with the dog every once in a while and they say, oh my God, the dog does some strange things and comes and sits with me. Doesn't it make sense? It's beautiful. Your pets who have passed, absolutely you'll see them again. Which comforts me is because I don't have biological children, my little dachshunds are my babies. I can't imagine not seeing them again. So the very first time I brought a pet through, this woman had written to me years back. And she said, I'm desperate. I have somebody I have to hear from. I can't get through this week. And I said, okay, we'll do your reading this week. I think this was before I even had a waiting list. So I get her on the phone, can't see her at all. I said, let me tune in and see who I get. And she said, I have to tell you, it's my cat. I said, what? She said, it's my cat I'm grieving. And I didn't laugh because I know that our pets are family. But inside I'm thinking, my very first thought, how am I going to get evidence from a cat? Because I will not be happy to say, oh yes, Fluffy's here and loves you so much. And Fluffy is fine on the other side. No. Well, our guides help us with everything. I know that my guides briefed the spirits beforehand, or the pet's soul, I don't know how that works. They know what I want to hear. So I tune in and I feel a presence, and I see 18. So your cat passed at age 18. Yes. Now I'd seen the cat, and it's sneezing and coughing. This is how it passed. The cat had pneumonia. I said, your cat is showing me sitting beside you in the car. Your cat went everywhere with you. I don't know anybody who does that with their cat. She said, everywhere. We were inseparable. And I'm thinking, oh my God, evidence from the cat. I've had a few dogs and cats. It's very comforting to me. I will tell you one time I had a dog come through. I said, oh, your little dog is here. It looks like a Shih Tzu. Oh yes, it's a Shih Tzu. And I said, oh, I got pains back here on my flank. The dog passed from kidney problems. Yes, it did. And I noticed she's saying it. So I silently said to the dog, are you male or female? Because I couldn't tell. But people I can tell pretty well. I couldn't tell with the dog's personality. It felt male, but I didn't want to say it until I'm sure. So I said again, male or female? I kid you not. The dog rolled over and showed me its belly. I said, this is a little boy dog. She said, oh yes, it is. I quickly gave a nod to my guides and I said, don't do that with people. Oh, gosh. So, I've said several times that I don't automatically say, oh, this is your loved one and they love you so much. Because one of the main lessons is, again, you take to the other side what you earn here through your actions. How loving are you? Are you able to feel love? Are you able to give love? So people come through feeling exactly as they feel. They let me show that to them so that they recognize their loved ones. When I see this image, that means my eyes have been opened on the other side. Then they show me what progress they've made on the other side. I did a reading for a woman. She came into my house, sat down across from me, and I said, oh, your mother's here. But right away, she's hanging her head down. This is an apology, and my sitter stiffened. So I knew that that was accurate. And I turned to the mother and I said, silently, what's the apology for? And she went like this, like cradling a baby, and like that. He said, your mother's apologizing for abandoning you as a baby. And she said, yeah, me and my 8 brothers and sisters. So now I know Mom is here. This is a conversation we have. So I silently said, why did you do that if you want to talk about it? And her mother then gave the situation that was going on in her life at that time, how she felt ever since. And the woman at the end said, I've been carrying anger at my mother for 75 years. And in 1 hour, it disappeared. And I use this as an example of the healing that can come from a reading, but really the teaching is, if we can all learn to rise to their level while we're still here, and with that compassion and understand that we humans hurt each other out of our ignorance as to who we really are, then we can forgive everybody, just like that. You don't have to forgive the act, but can you forgive the soul who's so blinded to the fact that we are light beings, here to learn to love each other. That's why we hurt each other when we don't know that. I've had people that reconciled with loved ones just like that when they get that. That's what we're here to understand. So we can give forgiveness and get forgiveness when we rise above this level. That's why I want to teach. There is more than just this level. If this was all there is, this human world, yeah, there would be a lot more suffering than we have now. But when the drama gets to be too much, and that can happen daily in this life, I just shift. I sit in the presence of the light, which all of you can do. You are that light. And the more that you sit in it and come to know there really is no difference between the two levels, then that's what we radiate out to the world. And that's what we're here. Slowly, slowly, slowly learning more and more. I'll take questions at the end, okay? If I have a few more points like that I really want to get across. Are the guides real? You bet they are. So it's really something when I walked in the door today, and the very first person that I saw, I recognized, and I said, I gave a reading to you. And it's Lydia right here. We'd never met till today. She came an hour early to make sure she was in the front row. And she said, I'm the one with Othello. And I went, oh my God, I'm going to share that story today. So this is a surprise for me, and I said, do you mind if I share this story? She had given me permission to share in front of all of you. I didn't know who you wanted to hear from. Her mother and father came through, and her father did one of these. Your dad is really surprised that there even is an afterlife. And she said he was an atheist, an avowed atheist. So what a thrill to find out that not only is he still here, but he's seen the light. I won't go into details, but her mom came through, and it was another case of, I'm not going to say your mom loves you very much. I'm sorry to say your mother never said it to you and couldn't say it to you. In fact, she's saying that she's so surrounded by love on the other side, and to her it feels like a scratchy blanket. Almost every soul I've felt on the other side tells me it feels like a warm blanket, like out of the dryer. That's what the love that meets us feels like on the other side. But here's a woman who was so cut off from her emotions and feelings while she was here. She couldn't even yet let that into her soul's awareness on the other side. But it's not anything to be depressed about. I know the soul keeps growing on the other side. There's hope for all of us. So that's not a depressing, harmful message. That's at least Mom showed up for this reading. And she came to ask for forgiveness. And if I may, Lydia said, I'm not sure I can forgive her. Because some stuff that came out in that reading, understandable. Understandable, but we talked about forgiveness here today. So the lesson of forgiveness comes up often in my readings, but all of a sudden my guides grabbed me, and mixed with her guides in the reading, I just started channeling this lesson in forgiveness. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, I know all this. I teach about forgiveness. But I knew it was the guides. But I'm thinking, she may think I'm just saying this, but this is the guides. And here's the brilliance of the spirit world. In the middle of this teaching from the guides, they said, you're playing a role here, all of you. But when you become identified with that role in the costume, you fail to see who you really are. You need to take off the costume in your awareness while you can. Othello, like the play, they said. And they went on with their teaching, and I'm thinking, Othello, that's Shakespeare. What? The brilliance is they know I don't know Shakespeare. I could tell you, yeah, he wrote Othello and Macbeth and Hamlet, but I couldn't tell you what they're about. They threw in that one little piece there so that we would know it was the guides. Why? Because after the reading was over, I knew I wanted to look up Othello, but I'd get to it later. Well, I'm working on editing a video, and it kept freezing, the video. Everything's going fine, and it kept freezing. What's going on here? And the guide said, would you look up Othello already? They're messing with my computer. Okay, so I Google Othello, and it says that in the play Othello, there's a character named Iago, who was very manipulative and dishonest, and had this really fraud-filled relationship with Othello. And I'm hearing, this is the relationship of Lydia and her mom. This is why they mentioned this in the reading. So we would know this is coming straight from the higher source, not from just me and what I think I know. And I emailed her that I cut and pasted this thing about Iago and Othello, and I said, look at this. And she read it and emails me back, that is my mother. My mother is Iago character, and that is the story. of our relationship. How brilliant is that? But are you ready for the total setup? She now tells me, my son was in English literature. He has a graduate degree in English literature and a cat named Iago. Do I believe in spirit guides? Absolutely. Welcome to my life. I love this work. It's hard. It's hard. You're dealing with people's grief every day. You're put on the spot and people expect you to get a good connection, and I expect it of myself in the spirit world. But I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. For the healing, for those magical moments. You know, yeah, I bet the forgiveness comes. So how do you connect? Well, it starts with belief. You need to believe that you can do what I do. Maybe not to the 5-bar connection level, but to sense the presence, to know that your loved ones are here. They're trying to communicate with you. We have to get past the I'm making this up stage. I had a son come to me in a reading from the other side. Lots of good evidence. And suddenly he showed me a rainbow. He said, rainbow in your reading, how airy-fairy is that, right? But he showed me something different. The rainbow wasn't out here. Your son is showing me a rainbow from your heart to his heart. And he says, the connection is good. Get this. His mother says, oh, I'm so glad to have that validation, because recently I've been trying a method of communicating with him by imagining a rainbow from his heart to mine. I'm so glad to hear the connection is good. Yeah, I keep a list of all these things. All of them. So there's your method. And we already talked about the importance of love and having an open heart. So think about who you would like to connect with. And go home and get still. Did you know that the letters in the word silent rearrange exactly to listen? So get in a nice peaceful place and become silent for a good 5 to 10 minutes. Your mind will wander, just like clouds in the sky. Thoughts will come and go. You just see them and say thought, and off it goes. Just go back to focus. Focus on your breath. That brings you present. You don't want to be thinking about the past and the future. You become silent and calm, and your breath calms you. Your breath helps you create. Focusing on the breath helps you create coherent brain waves, coherent heart waves. What do I mean by coherent? A flashlight sends out random waves of light. A laser beam has frequency that is in phase. When your brain and heart are in phase, your connection with the spirit world is like a laser beam. Instead of, oh, I want to talk to my loved one on the other side, it's, I am here for you. You get that difference? You become a laser beam of connection with your loved ones. You sit quietly, get rid of all this gunk. You can clear your energy centers. On my website, under resources, free meditation, several free meditations. One called the 10-minute transformation. In 10 minutes, you can clear out the gunk from being human every day, like an internal shower, right? We clean our bodies. How often do we clean out the gunk inside? Do the 10-minute transformation in 2 minutes if you want to. Just clear out the gunk, breathe deeply, and now. Think, bring to your mind and your heart the loved one you want to connect with. Imagine a rainbow. Contains all the colors of the rainbow, so that's every frequency that's out there. And imagine going straight to them. They're already near because the moment you begin thinking about connecting with them, they've drawn near. Their signal is right here. And then just talk directly to them. Continue breathing deeply, and then ask for whatever they want to share with you. And listen. And what you really can do is have a pad of paper in your lap and a pen. Very relaxed. and start writing down what they say. You can even prompt by writing in the third person. Mom or Dad, I want you to know this, or my beloved, I want you to know that. And they'll talk to you. And I guarantee most of you will say, well, I'm just making this up. But after a while, it'll take on a flow. And you'll feel so calm and relaxed, and you'll start to sense things that you would not have sensed otherwise. And you can have regular conversations with your loved ones this way. It's not really automatic writing. That's when the spirits actually move your hand. It's inspired writing from your loved ones. This is how it works. This is how I get the message from Sanaya every day. And if you need evidence, if after a while you truly know they're there, you say, tell me something that I couldn't know. For them to put yourself to the test. Give me a sign. Let's talk about signs for a minute. I was sitting in the University of Arizona lab, Laboratory of Human Consciousness. Dr. Gary Schwartz is sitting beside me. He has a camera recording the reading with one of his students who he's brought in to be my sitter, my client. And I'm bringing through somebody that she had indeed wanted to hear from. I didn't know that, but there he is. And I said, well, he sends you big black birds as a sign. Your eyes go wide, because indeed you did. And your friend says, it's like remote control. And the birds think it's fun. And Dr. Schwartz said, what did you just say? I said, her friend says he sends her birds as a sign that he's around. It's like remote control, and the birds think it's fun. And he said, Suzanne Wilson, another evidential medium, said the same thing in a reading last week. The same thing. So when we say that our loved ones send us birds or butterflies or dragonflies or whatever, they don't become a bird or a dragonfly or a butterfly. They blend their consciousness and say, go over there and peck on the window. Or sit and stare at them for a while. Or land on their hand, little butterfly. Or bounce into their heart and fly around in a circle. So how cool is that? So I went to meet with this Suzanne Wilson. She's the one that we're doing the Spirit Guide workshop coming up here. I went to meet her in person. I sat in her office. I kid you not, this bird comes up and starts tapping on the window. I looked at that, she looked at that, she says, do you know who that is? I said, I have a feeling. She said, so do I. And we talked about it, and the bird came back again. I just shared this recently, I think on my radio show, that I went home from back to our bus at the campground from that meeting with her in her office, and I'm sitting there, and I was reading a book about the spirit world, and it said, you can send your soul to visit anyone. If your intention is strong enough, it'll happen. I thought, well, that's a cool experiment. I love experimenting. And I thought, well, if I were to send my soul to visit somebody, who would be able to sense me? Suzanne Wilson. She's a really good medium. I'll send my soul to visit Suzanne. So I sat there, I didn't really know how to do it, but intention, belief, and the heart. So fill the heart-filled intention. I said, okay, my greater soul, go visit Suzanne Wilson. Somehow let her know she's being visited by me. And then I typed a text. Hey Suzanne, I just sent you something. Did you get it? I put it in notes on the phone with the date and time stamp and took a screenshot as evidence. 5:15 on this date. Then I waited an hour. Called her up. Suzanne, anything unusual happen today? After I left? She said, no. And I said, really? Nothing happened around 5:15? She said, well, just that silly bird came back and was pecking on the window again. Oh, that's pretty cool. Maybe. No real evidence there, but have fun with this. Once you learn there's a greater reality, stranger things have happened. The bird story. Okay. So we talked about how to do it. I have a couple more stories for you, and then we'll do a few questions. I'm going to tell this one, then we'll do questions. I already put this on a YouTube video. Please go to my website, which is my name, SuzanneGiesemann.com. There's so much good stuff there. Lots of videos, interviews, meditations, and there's lots of stuff on YouTube as well. So if you may have seen this one on YouTube, I just put it up recently, but I want to share this widely as possible because it gives us so much hope. Did a reading for a woman named Cheryl. She wanted to hear from her partner who had recently passed. So So I'm expecting to hear from this partner, but I get pulled over here where I would feel an uncle normally. And I said, I'm hearing the name Jim. I don't normally get names. I'd even told her I don't normally receive names, but I'm hearing Jim. He passed of cancer. He was in hospice before he passed. He's really funny. He's cracking jokes. He's hilarious. He's actually saying, I'm not ready to be pushing up daisies yet. I don't understand that. But he's also showing me working under the hood of a truck. She said, Suzanne, I don't understand this. My Uncle Jim is in hospice now with cancer. And he is Robin Williams funny. And he owns a truck repair business. So I tune in. What did I tell you about sensing the spirit? I can feel this guy's personality, but I know the soul is the soul is the soul. So I just have to believe I'm talking to the soul of a man who has not yet passed. I said, he's pretty close to passing. He may have passed. I said, check. But I think he's still in hospice. He's showing me his wife is with him and 2 kids. She said, that's right. And I said, and he's given me the name Gary and Gary. She said, his son is Gary and his grandson is Gary. So for somebody who doesn't get names too often, this is evidence. I'm talking to the soul of a man who's actively dying right now. Aren't we all, right? At some point. But he's in hospice, not going to open his eyes again. I said, well, he just showed me this rattlesnake. I have a fake rattlesnake. He showed me that, and he's saying there's a funny story. And there's something about shooting the rattlesnake. And she said, I don't know anything about that. And I said, good. Because if you can prove this, then nobody will be able to say, I'm reading your mind because you're thinking about your Uncle Jim right now because he's dying. So find out about the rattlesnake story. You give me anything else? You may give me, oh yeah, he gave me one main message which I'll hold to the end. The whole reason he showed up. So then all of a sudden here's the boyfriend she wanted to hear from. And I'm hearing the name Paul. And she said, well, Paul's the guy that introduced us. It's my ex-husband. And I said, that doesn't feel right. It's some other Paul. And we went on with wonderful evidence from her partner. Well, the reading's over. 2 days later, Jim passed. She had asked his wife, is there some story with a rattlesnake and being shot? And she said, I don't know anything about that. Okay. Suddenly, she remembers, wait a minute, Jim has a brother, Paul, my Uncle Paul. I wonder. She picks up the phone and calls Uncle Paul. Is there some story with you and Jim about a rattlesnake and being shot? And he burst into laughter and he says, boy, is there ever. And proceeds to tell this story about them when they were about 20 years old, going out with shotguns, looking for prairie dogs in eastern Colorado with another brother. And they come upon this prairie dog hole with 3 feet of a rattlesnake tail sticking out of it. And they drew straws to see who was going to pull the rattlesnake out of the hole. And the question is, why didn't they just leave it there? Well, one brother drew the short straw, pulled the snake out, and the other 2 shot it into pieces, and they cracked up. And Uncle Paul said, but Cheryl, there's not another living soul alive who knows that story, because we just stopped telling it over the years. There's another soul that knows that story, and he's very much alive. And he chose the one person, got his name through to a medium, so all of us would know the soul is a soul, whether the body has dementia, or the body is in a coma, or the body is dying, or the body is gone. The soul exists and can tell stories and make you laugh and show you they still love you. And Jim's message was for his family. I may look like I'm suffering in these final days, but I'm just fine in here. That's what he came to show. And I know I stood at my dad's bed in the hospice when he took his last breath, and I remember saying to the nurse, but he looks like he's suffering. And I remember that to this day. But I know now what I've learned from thousands of souls. The soul is always fine. This is an instrument. It's a vessel. It's a tool to help us learn our lessons here in Earth School. And the greatest lesson, the only lesson that matters is, do we love enough? Everybody. Everybody. Yes, can we see the soul inside the terrorist? Can we see beyond our political differences and see the role we've each chosen to play, a role, a fellow. Can we take off the costume long enough to say, there's a beautiful light? Can we shine our own lights brighter and really make a difference while we're here? Because I know a bolt of lightning can come out of the sky at any moment and take away the body, but you cannot kill the spirit. That's my story. Questions. Is it anybody's birthday today? It is?
Not mine.
Oh, no, here.
It's my dad's.
Your dad's birthday?
Yeah, but he's gone.
But he's gone. Well, he must have wanted you to have a copy of the DVD about my story. A wonderful young man heard this story after I did a reading for his mom, and he made the video, the Messages of Hope video. I'm not one to do advertisements, but I'm very proud that the Hemisync company came to me and wanted to do a series of mediumship CDs. And now the second one just came out this week. This is the first one. This one is Mediumship, the Training Ground. This woman, Cheryl, with Uncle Jim and her boyfriend, she's been using this every day. She floods my inbox with the stuff she's getting from the spirit world. She has just opened up. Hemisync are special signals, radio signals overlaid on music. The words came from Sanaya. The music came from a beautiful composer. Put together these divinely inspired words, the music and the tones that bring your two hemispheres of your brain into synchronization. That's what Hemisync means. It'll send you. So I love Hemisync, and especially focused on training us to connect with the other side. And so I really want to have these adventures in consciousness. There was a question way back there. Yes?
Yeah, I think you answered it. That's why I didn't raise my hand again, but it was, can a soul, can us that are living connect with another person that isn't living?
Yeah.
And then that is, you had answered that.
Yes, but can we connect with the soul of another one who's living? That we do that psychically all the time, even without knowing it. To connect with the soul of somebody who's not with you is an invasion of privacy sometimes. So you have to be careful with that kind of thing. Don't try to read somebody's energy at a distance. But yes, it's very possible because the soul is the soul.
And then the only other question, which I think maybe a lot of people might wonder about, can you just think it in your mind when you're trying to connect or talk, or with someone who has passed over, or do you have to say it out loud?
Oh no, silently. Words are superfluous. I had a woman come to me, she said, Helga, with a deep accent, I'm worried because all of my loved ones speak German. And I said, no problem. Because we don't speak in language, in a reading, really. How else do I get information from a cat? Right? It's energy, frequency, information on the frequency, and it comes in, and the brain translates it into words that the medium understands. I want to make one other point that's totally off topic. And that is, I've mentioned suicide several times. There's not a single soul I've brought through, and I have brought through so many suicides, who's burning in hell. They are all fine. Most of them in a rehab-type counseling situation, in a hospital-type setting with blue light that I see. Some of them immediately don't even need that, and they're helping others to see that it's not the wisest choice. You cut off your opportunities in Earth School. You cause so much pain to those left behind, and they feel that, but they're not in a bad place. Helen.
Can you, I know a lot of people when they begin mediumship have to distinguish the difference between their imagination, or I'm making that up, and I'm receiving that information. Can you just...
And how to tell the difference between your own information, your own imagination, and information from the spirit world. This is what comes with practice, because I have learned, and it's frightening to me, the left brain, you give it a few pieces of information, it will create a story. That's what it's trained to do. And that's why I train my baby mediums. It's like President Reagan said, trust but verify. And that's what I train people, unless you're really in the flow and your sitter is nodding, give 3 to 4 pieces of information and say, does this make sense? Can you understand this? I verify every few pieces so that I make sure that my brain hasn't gone off and told some story and I've lost the link and didn't know it, because I have students, they get into this whole story and their sitter says, well, I don't know who that is, because it feels so real. The way you really can tell it's not you is because those in spirit give you information that you would never think of, or it's so off the wall that you have no reason to think about that. Then you get to know what that feels like. So it's very, very subtle and tricky. In the back.
You mentioned that relatives who passed on have a desire to communicate with us. What about ancestors?
You mean way back?
Yeah.
I believe, I gotta get the answer from a different place because I can't answer that one. The greatest learning comes from our most recent family members, and that's who will try to communicate with you. Probably why I haven't gotten ancestors. What is the point of mediumship? To show the continuity of consciousness and to live our life lessons here with greater ease. That comes from our immediate relationships. Okay?
I heard a Sanaya talk where Sanaya talked about who the collective was. Would you
What
elaborate?
are they? They change all the time.
Well, they do.
I mean, whatever's needed. One time I was doing a channeling session, once I came out of the closet, I was doing channeling from a large audience, and somebody asked a question, and Sanaya said, you will wait while we get a scientist. There was a brief pause, and then boom, he answered the question, which was really cool. There are some higher ups in there, and I don't even worry. I know who some of them are, but I don't want to be the one known as this or that, that channels this or that person. To me, it's their message. That's what they want us to focus on, which is always about love. Diane had mentioned a recent message. I'm going to be putting it on YouTube within the next 2 days. I have a neighbor where we live. He's going to be 90 in a few months, and I didn't realize that he was going downhill till a friend said he was supposed to teach his class and didn't show up for his class. This is a man, 89 years old, teaching classes on spirituality. And Sanaya said, you will visit him. I've been really busy, but you will visit him. Okay. So I said, Ty, I gotta go do a house call. So I called, okay, come over. I went in, I was stunned. He really looked frail, had changed a lot. And I walked in the door and he looked at me and he said, I wanna go home. And I said, I understand that. Sanaya wants to talk to you. And he said, okay. And I sat down and his wife joined me and I got into this state and they came through with a 15-minute message that was so profound. I didn't hear it until yesterday because I hear it kind of as it comes through, and I got a transcript of it. And I called him this morning and said, may I have permission to put that online? Because I can think of so many people that need to hear the message. And the message was, he had this wonderful life here and it was fulfilling, and now his body has failed him and he has all these challenges and he just wants to go home. So he's given up and he just keeps telling his wife, I want to go home. And everybody that he meets, I want to go home. And they said to him, you've been a teacher while you're here. You have students waiting for you on the other side. You think your work is over? And you're going to get to the other side, and what will you tell them? I gave up because my body didn't work, or I used every moment until the end. And basically, as long as we're still breathing, there's a reason for that. There's still purpose, because we can't stop that. So you have to trust that higher purpose. It was much more than that, and it's beautiful. So I hope you'll go to YouTube, or if you're on my email list, I'll send it out by email. But he's now taking walks twice a day, going to the grocery store. He had purpose again. They said, this is the silent retreat you never took. You can't read anymore. You can't get out and drive, but you can sit here and get to know the Lord your God greater than you ever have. That's what they said. It was like, whoa. Yes.
So along those lines, you mentioned before that this earth existence is like a classroom, and that even when we move to the other side, that it's also like we continue to learn. So what is the next step? Is there a higher ascension that we graduate to?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
If you all go to my website on the homepage. If you sign up for my email list and then unsubscribe if you don't want to be on it, you get a free download of this booklet called Awakening, and it includes this hour-long download from my guides describing those different levels on the other side. And it all depends on what you've learned in each go-around as a soul playing a role here. So if you get to the other side, I'll tell you that one real quick. And you really love your earthly things, you're going to be eating things, even though you don't need berry pie for digestion, you're going to eat it because you just enjoy the taste of it. And I had this man come through in a reading, the woman sitting there, and it was her husband. And I said, your husband's saying to me, on the other side, I'm golfing every day and I have my 2 feet firmly on the ground. Well, guess what? Golf was his passion, but one leg was amputated before he died.
Wow.
So there's evidence. You get to golf on the other side. If you want to, if you're still at that level where you're attached to your earthly things, but there comes a time when you finally get it. You get why we're here. And you say, I don't want to even do that on the other side. I just want to be the light. And so then perhaps now you become a spirit guide and you don't incarnate again, but you help these poor souls who are still here and think they're the roles. You know, you become a spirit guide for a while. And then higher and higher and higher. It is an ever-ongoing spiral, hopefully learning and growing, isn't it?
The program you went to in England, can you tell us something about that, how
Yeah.
long it took?
It's boot camp for mediums, and the classes are only 1 week because there's only so much you can learn. The rest is doing and innate ability that you develop yourself. So there are ongoing programs year-round. Pick your teachers, pick your week, pick your subject, and I call it boot camp for mediums because it's from 9 in the morning till 9 at night, and you push yourself and you fail in front of others, and they have Weepy Wednesday and Tearful Tuesday, and you get over there and you say, I'm the worst medium in the world, and it's the energy that's built up there over the years in this old estate is just tremendous, so it's really a cool experience. It's an hour outside of London.
What's the name of it?
It's called the Arthur Findlay, Findlay College of Psychic Sciences. It's the mecca for evidential mediums. You stay there, you stay right there. You eat 3 meals a day with other mediums. It's like total immersion is fantastic. Yes.
Do you ever talk to deceased people other than family members for a client? I'm actually hungry for a message of encouragement about what's happening in Washington, and I thought, I wonder what Nixon thinks or Reagan thinks about
I do experiments like that, and one day I said, who can I talk to from that I really like to talk to, but they have to want to talk to you. It has to serve the greater good. And I actually had a wonderful conversation with Albert Einstein. And I know it was real because I needed evidence. And real quick, we'll end with this. I said, I need something that I couldn't know about you. And he said, see the picture of me on the cover of Time magazine with the white shirt and the thin white tie. And then he said, I enjoyed time travel and experimenting with thoughts. And he showed me him riding on a red rocket, a little cartoon figure riding on a red rocket. He said, I enjoyed many years of penury until I finally did this and that, and poverty for a few years. Lots of good stuff like that. It came out of, he was coming through with a German accent. And most readings, it sounds like my own thoughts. This was really fascinating to me. I went online afterwards. He'd been on many covers of Time magazine. There was one in particular with a white shirt and a thin black tie, and the title of that issue was Rediscovering Einstein, which is exactly what I was doing in that reading. So it was very appropriate. Couldn't find that picture of him riding a red rocket, but the guides kept saying, you'll find it, it's there, you'll find it. Kept Google imaging, couldn't find it, and they said, video. I did a video for Albert Einstein in time travel, and there he is riding on a red rocket cartoon. I get in the laboratory with Dr. Gary Schwartz. He has me bring through 7 members of his team that's helping him develop a soul phone. Imagine, how many people would have thought it was crazy to pick up a little wireless instrument and talk to people and see videos years ago? Well, Dr. Schwartz is working on a phone that will tune into the frequency of spirit. So you can call your mother on the other side. Whether she wants to answer is up to her. Okay? But I didn't know who these 7 spirits were. He gave me pseudonyms, and one of them was Albert Einstein. And I was sworn to secrecy for years after that, but now he's come out and he said who several members of that team were, and it's gone public with that. But I went back this last summer to his lab. I'm sitting there with Dr. Schwartz in the lab and his wife, who tunes into that spirit team as well. And I looked up and I said, Albert Einstein is sitting in that chair. I know this sounds crazy. But Rhonda, he's telling me that that blue thing on the wall, you bought it when you were in Tombstone, Arizona at an outdoor fair. And she said, exactly, I see him too. They come to teach us things, and I'm not even going to get into our world part, because we need to learn to love each other first, and then it trickles down, and it trickles down. We're at 5 o'clock. How about that?